Welcome to Reclaimed Heritage,
a place where we discuss traditional skills for the practical home.
We're your hosts, Christy,
Kari,
and Elaine.
Do you find yourself staring longingly at the beautiful homesteads on social media? Dreaming of the day you can finally collect eggs, grow a garden, and milk a cow? For many of us, we feel trapped in a neighborhood, wishing for more land so we can really homestead. But homesteading is a mindset. In this episode, we will introduce how to be a homesteader where you are with what you have.
There needs to be a homemaker exercising some measure of skill, imagination, creativity, desire to fulfill needs and give pleasure to others in the family. How precious a thing is the human family. Is it not worth some sacrifice in time, energy, safety, discomfort, work? Does anything come forth without work? Edith Schaefer.
Well, welcome back, and we are on Season 2, Episode 1, and we are going to be talking today about homesteading where you are, which is a topic we're super excited about. I was thinking about this earlier today, and that homesteading really is a mindset. It's not just having, a huge property, which that actually is helpful. Although sometimes I think the bigger it is, the more the more taxing it can become. But It really is a mindset of being a producer and not a consumer. Breaking the chains of being tied to systems, whether it's the fluctuating grocery prices or, whatever, and really just being bent towards your home instead of outside of your home. So we're going to be looking at some skills that we're going to talk about for the rest of the season. But before that, we like to share a little bit of what we did this weekend. We had a lot of fun.
We did have a ton of fun. Yeah, our church did something called, I always get it wrong. I always want to call it March Madness, and my kids are like, Mom, that's basketball. But I say it like firmly and with gusto every time. Yeah, March Missions.
Yeah.
So we had a few speakers come in and tell us about what they're doing. And then we had an unbelievably large feast.
We did. Oh my goodness. We had enough food to go on a round 2, except that we had pizza coming on round 2.
Right. Our entire church really is made up of women who have a fear of running out of food.
This is fact.
And so this is what happens when we feast together, is there's no shortage of food.
It's not fear motivated. It's just wanting to love people well motivated and making sure that we don't run out of food.
Correct. Yes. And we definitely didn't come close. So good news, we had leftovers. I mean,
we did.
I wasn't unhappy about that.
No, my kids are having some for lunch today. So, yeah.
Are they really? Oh, we already ate those. Yeah. They were dipping in Sunday evening, the leftovers from Saturday. So, and there was some dancing, lots of dancing going on.
Fun dancing, board games. Yeah, they had a really good time.
It was fantastic.
All of our kids. It's fun watching the big kids teach the little ones how to dance.
Yes, it is.
It's very sweet.
And the parents sometimes.
And the parents.
And the parents.
Although some of you all stick in the muds.
I danced.
You did.
Yeah,
I
so did
danced.
Christy.
Yeah.
Eventually all of us were convinced to get out there at some point or another.
Yeah. It can't all be fun and games.
I know,
Somebody's got to
right?
do cleanup and stuff.
That's true.
This is true.
Yeah, no, it was excellent.
It was.
So, but we are, maybe you can hear in our voices, we're a little weary, I think, from our long weekend. We've had sick kids.
Again?
Sick.
We just said that last
We have, okay, but.
It's March.
Okay, but like
It's a march in Ohio with yeah.
But we have figured out that the sickness that you've heard us talk about ended up being strep. And since we're all such good friends, we like to share everything.
We do.
Hey, mine aren't diagnosed yet.
I go tomorrow.
Yes.
If I was a betting woman. Sore throats. Friends with strep. I wonder what it could be.
Nothing bone broth won't cure before tomorrow.
I know, right? Yes, I did throw everything I had at what we had going on, and turns out we still needed the antibiotics.
Yeah, apparently honey is not a cure for stress.
No, it's a reliever, but not a cure.
Yeah.
I mean, unless there's some magical way to use it, we haven't used it.
I know. Yeah, please tell us if there's
yes, right.
magic. But anyway, so I think this season actually was kind of thrown at us as an idea by our daughters,
of things they want to see covered.
Yeah, things they want to see. And, you know, a lot of times, you guys, if you message us, or they're kind of like they are our marketers on our social media. So they're well aware of like the trends behind these beautiful homesteads. And they are beautiful. But that statistically is not a reality for most people. Like if you grew up on family farmland, that's awesome. Or if you had the ability to move out a little while ago. But like in our current economy, being able to purchase land and move away from your jobs, like it just kind of gets less and less of a possibility. So they were talking about, you know, some ideas of what you can do where you are.
Right.
And how can we support or give some of our knowledge to you guys in, you know, if you're in an apartment, which your daughter, well, you both have daughters. Well, I have a daughter.
We all have daughters in apartments.
Yes.
That are doing things.
We all have daughters
Are doing things.
Yes. Like
and trying to learn skills. That's what this is about, is honing and learning some skills that are good wherever you are.
Yes. And they will be all the things that you think you will do when you homestead on like property. You will save yourself a lot of heartache if you can do the things that we're going to talk about in this season and do them well in your apartment or in your suburb.
Yeah, scaled down just a little bit. Yeah.
You will be light years ahead of anybody else who's moved out to property. If you've got these few things nailed down, then when you're able to move, if you really desire land, you can kind of jump in, right, with like larger scale farming things because you've done these smaller things.
Yes.
And these are not insignificant. These are skills that, like, I mean, a lot of them on here, some of them I've never done. Some of them I've done, but for sure not mastered. So I'm excited to learn some new skills.
And when you get property, you have more responsibilities. So if you haven't learned some basic skills before, it's really hard to learn them in the thick of it. It's like trying to learn how to bake bread when you just had a baby. You know?
Right.
Not easy to do.
It really is just stewarding your resources well where God has placed you in this time.
At your time, right?
Yeah.
It's redeeming. We keep talking about redeeming the time. Like,
yes.
You may be unhappily waiting in the position that you're in, thinking, you know, as you scroll through Instagram, that you could do all the things if you had something different. But these are all things that you can do where you are and joyfully.
Right.
And like Christy's cold open, it really has a lot to do with the mindset. And Elaine, you were talking about that earlier today, how identifying as a homesteader is a mindset. So I know people who live on land, y'all, like they live on 5 acres, and I wouldn't consider them a homesteader.
No, they mow it.
Yep.
It really is just more about the investment of the property versus what you can make the property do for you. Yeah.
I mean, we all know, like, we have, where we live, like, there's it's kind of like an in-between area where, like, you're not in town, but you're not in what we consider, like, the rural country. So you have these beautiful homes on, like, 3 to 5 acres, and they are perfect.
McMansions.
They are McMansions. And if that's you, that's awesome. But we know people who, like, live there, and they don't have a homesteader mindset, but they have the land that you think you need to have it. So it really is the mindset more than the environment that you're living in. So.
Yeah.
So we're really excited. We have 12 different topics, ideas that we're going to give you today. And just a tiny little bit behind them. And then for season 2, each week, we will be going into each topic more in depth on how, why, really where you can find a lot of the resources on learning it.
And there really are some crossovers in all of this too. So there's skills that you can just begin to hone, and then those will flow into other things that you can then, as interest, you know, because not everything has to be your jam.
Right. Because there are
I'm aging myself with that.
Yeah.
You may just try them for the first time and see. So, yeah.
The thing that I really liked when we were making the list is how I could really think of somebody who did each thing well. And what was interesting is, maybe with the exception of like 2 things, it was rarely one person who did all the things well.
Like the Proverbs 31 woman. When you read that chapter in Proverbs, I don't know anyone who's doing all the things on there, but same thing. I know people who do a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Well, some of it's seasonal. Some of these things, like my daughter and I were just talking. She's like, there's things you've always done, and then there's things that you've done, you know, outside of having newborns and having toddlers. And so she said that gives me hope because I don't feel like I have to do it all the time.
Right.
So, yeah. And there's a lot of things on here that like I've done in the past or I've dabbled in, but aren't necessarily doing right now.
Well, and I broke it down in when I was listening to actually a couple other podcasts, and one of them had an idea of picking a skill per month. And I was like, that's so interesting because we're doing 12 months of the year. If you picked one topic a month and you spent 1 month just on that area, like the growth you would see in your skill ability in a year would be phenomenal. And even some of these that I've done or we've done, and I was thinking about that again. I'm like, gosh, if I just took this list in particular and spent, I mean, even an hour a day, that's 30 hours of your time that you've spent in one of these areas. It would be
And it's time well spent.
very well spent.
You're going to get a return.
So let's start with what I would consider the easiest one to begin with, is what I would say. I don't know that it's necessarily the easiest skill on our list. It's probably the one that would take you, let's look at the list. It's probably the one that I actually think would take you the longest to say that you're really good at.
Maybe.
Depends how motivated you are.
Yeah. Okay, so topic number 1.
Cooking from scratch.
From scratch, yeah.
And why would we want to cook from scratch? I think well,
Can I be honest? Some days I really don't. But there's lots of good reasons why we should.
Money. You definitely save money. Just knowing what you're putting in your family's bodies. So even something as simple as a taco seasoning package, when you actually read what's in there, there's all these extras that you really just do not need.
Yeah. So you can hear your kids say, there's nothing here to eat.
It's called the ingredient.
Oh my, the ingredient home. Yes, I know.
There's nothing to eat. I'm like, there's lots of
things. You just have to make the
work
things.
for it. Yeah.
That's how you can tell, like, legitimately the cred that you have as a mom versus the rest of the people in your house. Because when everyone, including my husband, declares there is no food, I've got like 5 awesome dinners.
Right.
We are not at the bottom of the barrel yet.
Yes.
We aren't. Yeah. Yes. So, you know, it's interesting because, again, I love following people who do like deep prep. That's awesome and worth your time, and we'll talk about it. But you should not waste your time storing 5 30-gallon, you know, whatever, buckets
jars
of flour or beans if then you don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Because when the time comes to need it, you're not going to know. And there could be many reasons why you end up, I mean, you lose your job. You, like you said, this is what's interesting. A lot of people go down this rabbit hole with food allergies. That's kind of their kickoff, because if you have food allergies in your home, trying to find food that you're just going to walk into a grocery store to purchase to feed a family is rough.
Yes.
It's rough. It's hard to find, and then it's very expensive. Like allergen-free food that's been pre-prepared is hard. Right. So,
but we'll have a fantastic episode on cooking from scratch. What's another one we got here?
Stocking your pantry.
Stocking your pantry. Yes.
They kind of go hand in hand.
It's hard to cook from scratch if you don't have the items in your pantry. There's nothing worse than having to like run to Dollar General because you're out of cornstarch.
Right.
So these things will help you. If you can open up your pantry and have ingredients to pull from, cooking from scratch is going to be a lot easier. Yep.
And the homestead mindset, and that actually was interesting. Like, Christy, you live on a lot of land, but you're 5 minutes from the store.
I know, it's very odd.
But for us, it was a big eye-opener, because if you
the closer you live, the more you go.
You're not making it. Like, that's how that works out.
Yeah.
So it is like learning to plan your meals well and have your pantry stocked with the things that you need to make. It might sound very simple, but if you are newly married or know somebody who's newly married, the daily discoveries of, like, I went to make this and my mom always had it in her spice cabinet and it's not there and I never thought about it. So we're going to go over what you should think about.
Well, even living in a home of a stocked pantry, my daughter is still saying to me, Mom, do an episode on what to keep in your pantry, because she didn't do the stocking of the pantry. She just benefited from opening the pantry up, and everything's in there that she needs.
Yep. Yeah.
Same. Having daughters who have moved out and they just take for granted that something's going to be there, and then they're like, "Oh, it's not." Okay,
It's the shocker of salt. When you first get married and you realize, like, salt isn't just in your cabinet.
I think that
Neither is garlic powder.
I was going to say the 3 that like I heard someone mention that I like. You're not getting it at a bridal shower was salt, rubber bands, and scissors. I'm like,
Scissors? I mean, right? It's like my husband always comes to me and says, honey, do we have a stapler? And I look at him like, if you haven't bought one yet, there's still no stapler.
I know what I'm getting.
Maybe I should buy it.
All right. Note to self.
Okay.
Alrighty. So another one we're going to do is sewing and some needlecraft ideas. So all the things that entail using needles.
Right. Yeah.
And sewing, I always think of sewing as in making some beautiful dress. But as I was looking at Cyrus's jeans the other day with this little hole developing in his knee, I'm like, of his jeans, I'm like, I should probably sew that up. So also just practical things.
Yeah, mending. I don't think we're getting into garment
or Civil War
making. No,
costumes.
No, but, and I do
Basics.
But mending's huge.
Yeah. I can do some handicrafts. Not so. I can't machine sew. My mother is an excellent seamstress, and I can't tell you how many pairs of pants I'll get a hole or a tear, and they're my good jeans, and she can patch them, and I get another 6 months to a year out of them. I mean, money and time.
And I don't know if any of it's necessarily hit yet, but anytime I sew a button on, I call 1 or 2 of the kids over to just watch me, so that is an important skill for even young men to have. I've heard from a few men that they like went to go on a job interview or something and pulled a shirt out and they were missing a button. They don't know where to find the extra buttons. Like, how do you do that?
That's huge.
Yeah.
And you may, and even on the farm, the things that you come up with that you need to create from scratch.
Right.
It's a big deal. So
I even see on this list, repurposing, thrifting, and foraging.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. That is big.
Yeah, so foraging, thrifting, and repurposing, they're kind of all big, a little bit different. I would say for me, the repurposing was such a huge one that I was blown away when we moved to the farm. Okay, I'm going to tell you this little story of why this is such an aha moment for me. Because if you don't live on a farm, you do this. I would drive out to the country and I would see these gorgeous properties with junk. And I always judged really hard. And I kept thinking, you live on like a magazine cover property, and then you've got like a broken down car and a bathtub and some random
tractor.
swimming pool and the tractor that's not moving, and like, is that like 40 tires? Like, come on, like somebody needs to come on a weekend.
Barrels?
You need to clean this up so I can come back and enjoy it better next time I drive by. And now if you drove by my property, you would think the same thing, because ain't nobody throwing that away. You're going to use it for something else.
No, but I'm constantly saying, can we hide it behind the barn,
right.
please?
Yes. Can we hide it?
Yeah, ours isn't in our backyard or in the front yard where you can see it. But if you pull in my driveway. But yes, so, and the foraging I actually know nothing about.
Oh, foraging, I'm excited to talk about.
Yep, so it'll be new.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's see.
Well,
Fermenting.
yeah.
Yeah. Also, I've just started that this year, like my first. I think I've
You're
only
doing the
done
red
2
onions,
things.
aren't you? They are a game changer. Then you want to ferment everything.
I find it's like this with every topic. Like once you start repurposing, you're like, nothing gets thrown away. I can use that for something. Fermenting, you're going to ferment everything.
Well, yeah, and I think we'll do pickling and fermenting are the same thing, but we'll talk about them, I think, together, because I've pickled quite a few things, but I've only fermented a very small amount.
I have some sauerkraut going on my counter, so I'm pretty excited about that.
That kind of goes along with a lot of our gut health that we talked about, so I'm very excited. And it's those kind of things are my
incredibly
favorite.
good.
Yeah, because you just like set it and forget it. It's not one of the super time consuming. things.
It is kind of stinky, I have learned. If you are trying to sell your home, probably not the time to do some sauerkraut in downstairs.
But the time to do sourdough bread.
Open the door on. Yeah.
They're going to ask you to have your septic pumped.
Could the stinky people move out early?
Oh my goodness.
So one of the ones I'm super excited about is to do our week on herbalism. So I have, in our soap business, a few years ago, we got into some of that with making salves and lip balms and stuff where you just started to read about the magic that's in a lot of these
I have a daughter that is super interested and cannot wait to put more herbs in the herb garden this year. She was already looking at my seeds and critiquing what we have started.
Yes.
Oh
And
my
I'm
goodness.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Somebody's, going to be.
A friend of ours makes tinctures. Actually, we have a couple friends who make tinctures. And that's on I'm super excited because I haven't done it yet. We've done a lot of, I can't think of the name. It's not tinctures, but like we've let them set in oils for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking we'll be able to go from there, but I'm
Well,
very,
you
very
know,
excited.
I bought amber canning jars at our wedding in October because they went with the color scheme, thinking towards
Yes.
how am I going to use these in future. So,
And speaking of, we have canning and freezing and preserving in that way.
Yes.
On the list.
yes, hot water
Drying.
bath and pressure
Are we
canning.
doing
Some
Dehydrating?
dehydrating. Yeah,
which I just got a dehydrator the other day.
Did you?
Well, did I ever tell you that story? When we were moving, my husband thought, my wife doesn't use this dehydrator, so he just gave it away along with like my homeschooling dry erase board. Like, because he thinks, I joke with him all the time, if he didn't see it happen when he's home for like the 3 hours, then he thinks it never happens. So since we've moved, I'd wanted one. So I got one off of Facebook Marketplace for
Awesome.
$10.
Oh, wow.
They only used it like 4 times. So I have that. So I am ready and ramped up to do that topic.
I'm very, very excited as we keep talking about the canning. So.
I'm excited for the planning.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And organizing, like how to right up my alley.
Well, and if you're adding all these skills in and you don't know how to plan or have a good routine or manage your home well, you will be overwhelmed. You just won't be able to do it all.
Well, and even when you have it down, like
Oh,
it is like
it can still be
yes.
overwhelming. But at least
adding
it's more
something
manageable.
and then something kind of has to, when your yes has to be no to something
Yes.
else. So it's all things in.
I know when you tune in and you're like, wow, those ladies have an extra pep in their step. It's going to be the planning week. And we all sit here with our planners as we speak.
Yes.
And yes, we love to plan
On
and have
paper,
routines.
and then it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, execution's the rough stuff.
Well, it's where the rubber meets the road. It is, and you have weeks that I think, wow, I got all my little check marks on
Right?
here and it was a great
Yes.
week. But then I have weeks that I don't, and it's still a great week. God put before me what I needed to do, and
there'll be
you just
interruptions.
get it done.
It is.
You know, you'll have your schedule down, but like you said, God dictates our schedule.
Yep. And
But
so
if you have a
if you
schedule-
have that built in, the
You can
flexibility
jump
to
right
do
back
those
in.
things. Yep.
Awesome. Animals. We're going to talk
Animals.
about animals.
Yep.
That's going to be another really good week for many, many, many years. Actually, I would say after we started 4-H. It was really interesting. We would go to the barn and you would see the kids doing 4-H for animals.
Sorry, you say the kids, and you used to have goats, so I'm trying to picture which
Yeah, but
children or kids.
Yes, true.
That's
True. Yes, my children. Well, yeah, and that's actually one of the main reasons we moved. We were in 4-H, we were at the fair, and we were in the tent that didn't do animals, and then behind us was the barn where there were the kids that did the animals, and we didn't have animals, but that's where my kids wanted to be. And they would beg and cry and say to my husband things like, please, 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 and we had the conversation.
They're
of like,
having so much more fun than we are in
yes.
here.
Yeah.
Well, our kids are begging for goats and not cell phones. So, kind of
We can do that.
we should
Maybe
make
this isn't a
happen.
bad thing. Yeah,
But the work ethic that comes out of caring for animals is like none other.
absolutely.
I mean, I can tell you, again, if you are in a workplace and you find people who have phenomenal work ethic, 9 times out of 10, those are kids who have.
Truth.
I would say farm animals, but we're going to talk about
be any
how
animal.
any animal is going to
Somebody depending on their diligence.
Could be a
Yes.
hamster.
It could be a hamster. They still have to be fed every day.
Right. So we also have one of the obvious ones, I think, is gardening and microgreens. Well, maybe gardening's more obvious than microgreens.
Just
I've not done
micro-gardening.
microgreens.
I haven't done microgreens. Who has done microgreens?
Me.
Okay, Christy.
Sorry.
I think
Well,
Rachel
we're
my
going
daughter,
to
It's
do
been
that.
a minute. It
Yeah.
has really been a
Yeah.
minute. It's one of those things like that I was excited about being on this list because I can't wait to do it again.
Yes.
Yeah. I've never done it, but they talk about the nutritional components of microgreens and how amazing they are. But if you're in an apartment, when we were looking this up, like microgreens was like number one on the list of things to do.
Well, I have a seed
takes
for
very little
alfalfa sprouts,
space. Yeah.
and I have yet to do them, but I have them. So now
There you go.
I'll get them
That's
started.
half the job right
and
there,
gardening
Elaine.
and
Exactly.
planters and buckets and all the things you can do in your apartments. And we actually have a really good friend of
There's
ours
some of my
who's-
kids who probably don't know that I even did microgreens because I used
been
to.
so long.
Well, I used to just blend them up and hide them in food.
Oh, yes. Yes. My kids, they lovingly refer to those as the green smoothie era.
Yeah.
They didn't know
Yeah.
what they were drinking and it tasted like berries, but it was green.
Banana. It's just banana, guys. There's
Yeah.
the green comes from the banana somehow.
Yeah.
It's magic.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. And I'm super, super stoked about the deep storage long-term food prep. I haven't. Okay. So when we knew COVID was coming,
I had a flashback to that week.
yes, you did.
Because everything surprised Elaine around that time.
Yes. Oh my gosh. You guys.
Oh.
I know we're sitting at church and all of the women are talking about some of the things that they've done in deep storage. And lovely Elaine's like, for what?
Why would you do that?
It was precious.
Yeah. Well, it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but
that'd be
since
good
my
one.
kids, saw that we didn't, close down everything for COVID and we're all still here.
I'm just thinking about the pudding.
The pudding. We have never purchased pudding, ever. But for some
Jell-O,
reason, imminent death.
Because if you die of
Made me
COVID, your
buy
kids need pudding.
instant pudding cups.
I remember her face when we took her down to our basement when they first moved here to show, and she was just like, when do you eat all this food? She was like deer in headlights. Like, okay, I think we maybe need to move back.
Okay. When you live in a city and you can walk to the grocery store, you're not thinking. I mean, I don't live in the city now, but back
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
that's what we did. So we're thinking, what am I going to go to the store and buy for dinner today, not
Right.
for the week? Let
Why
alone
do you
for
need that many
months.
green beans, Christy?
Why do you need that many green beans? Right.
Or pudding cups. There are none left, by the way. If something had actually happened and there was a shutdown, it wouldn't have made it because they ate them in approximately 2 weeks.
Because you don't buy them.
Because we
That's
don't buy
why.
them, and they're
Yeah.
like, I think I'm sick. I should eat a pudding
I should
cup."
eat a pudding cup.
Whatever.
Or just sneak down and help yourself. Yeah.
Yes, I've been on the phone with you when you go to get things out of the
word.
freezer and someone.
Has sampled all the. Yes, that's my favorite when I go for an ingredient because we don't
right.
have,
Yeah.
and this happens more and more these days because the more teenagers and people that you add that then have their skill set is they can make the things and then they don't mention that they used said things.
That never happens in our
Oh,
house.
that's so lovely. I'm glad for you.
I made chocolate chip cookies the other night, and my children said, "Mom, it has been ages since you've made chocolate chip cookies." And I went, "Yes. I buy chocolate chips all the time. And by the time I go to make it, there are no chocolate chips because they eat them for just, and it's not my little kids, it's
No,
my
I know.
teenagers.
The teenagers.
And even this batch, I was dealing with half a package of chocolate chip cookies because somebody, I think it was Caden, is what the consensus was, had dipped into the chocolate chip.
We bought Heath a locking toolbox for Christmas this year, and I keep saying I need that downstairs for food.
Yeah.
It's the same thing
Yes.
with the chocolate chips.
Like, why do they think you buy chocolate chips?
For
Why?
them to eat, obviously.
Or pepperonis. Why do we buy pepperonis?
Snack. It's a snack.
Cereal, cheese. I stopped buying string cheese because I thought if I just buy blocks, people would consume less cheese.
No,
That's not what
no,
happened.
no. They just take a block of the block.
Take the blocks.
Or if there's half a block, you say, what happened to the half a block? And there's a teenager walking around with a quarter of a block left.
Right. And
With just bite marks in it. I'm like, you guys.
all right. Have you seen Caden make himself a plate? I don't think he listens to this podcast, so I can say whatever I want. When he wants a snack, have you seen this yet?
No.
He will take pita chips and he'll make little roses out of pepperonis, and he'll get cheese and grapes, and he has this whole spread. This is what
He's a Foisy.
this is true. He eats a
Must be
charcuterie board
plated
for a
yeah,
snack.
beautifully.
Charcuterie board
Yes.
for a snack.
Exactly. But hey, we have one more,
Yes.
which is Fishing, hunting, archery, and shooting.
And this is the one that I was going to say at the beginning when you said it may take you, cooking from scratch may take longer. I think to hone each one of these skills would actually take longer than that. Yeah.
Well, if I can learn how to put a worm on a hook, that's my goal. I have my husband with me when I go fishing. He does it. Sorry.
Okay, well, here's the embarrassing moment. I grew up in a family where, my father did all of these things my whole life. And we were at some point dependent on the food that he hunted.
Yeah.
And until 2 years ago, I'd never shot a gun. So I come from family who's done this on both sides in lineage.
Did you not have an interest to learn from him at one time, or was he...
So
he moved on to where he wasn't?
Was when he was younger, and same with my mom. They both had property to do this, and we lived in a suburb. So finding a place to go hunting was near impossible. He used to practice archery, I think, down at Deer Creek. Actually, when I was a kid, we would go on weekends. But finding places to do this when you're in a city is A, very hard, and B, honestly, is extremely expensive. Like, if you don't have your own land, you have to pay to be on someone's land. So I think that is why. Like, when he could go, it had to be a weekend where he had to get the deer.
Right.
So this wasn't when you're taking your daughters to come along for fun. So by the time it was that way,
because they're noisy.
We're financially, we could have probably done more. My grandparents had sold all of their property when I was 9.
Okay.
And then I was a teenage girl who was also no. So it's sad. Again, the same thing with the handicrafts. We come from family who has mastered this and lived off of it, and yet I have none of it. That's kind of mick.
Well, there's a reason why my sons are all doing shooting sports with 4-H, because they're at least gaining those skills.
Do the same thing.
Yeah. No, you guys we've always done it. I haven't
your
hunted
house is the shooting sports.
Well, kinda. Yeah, we've hosted some events and done things to where we clay pigeon shoot. And my father-in-law is a sharpshooter and served in Vietnam, so he's kind of passionate about teaching them young and safety and all of that to go with it. And I hunted back in the day, but I started having kids, and now we have sons, and they like to go and kind of trump me. I'll go sit in a deer stand with my husband and hang out, but I'm not usually packing heat because I'm just content to watch. Yeah. So yeah, but for me, getting my concealed carry was very important for me, and because like you said, we live close enough to town that we are not far removed from town, but yet we're rural. That can sometimes invite unwanted guests. So that is something you can do in town to prepare.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in that, I think both in our cooking from scratch and this episode, we're going to do some butchering conversation where, you can go to your store and buy whole animals and learn how to butcher. Because again, it's great that you've got the farm. If your purpose is to feel prepared, having the animal and then not knowing what to do.
Well, even the cuts of meat, buying a bone in anything is going to be less expensive, and then learning how to best utilize that is a skill and something you can improve upon.
So I think that's all 12.
It is.
I am so excited.
I am too.
They're all things that I'm very, very, very excited to learn and hone our skills on. And if you guys have questions,
suggestions, things that you want covered within those, or maybe in another time, please let us know.
Please, and resources. So you guys, we do our best to source resources for you that we mention on these podcasts, but we all live in the same area in Ohio, and if there are things near you or resources that you think we should be sharing with other people, please let us know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you. As always, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
Anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Yep. We love reading your comments.
We do. It makes us happy.
Well, have a good week.
And join us.
See you guys soon. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.